Welcome everyone to Mrs. Royce's Intro to Business Lecture Series. Today we're going to be talking about consumer rights and responsibilities. The first thing I would like you to do is grab a pen or a pencil and your notebook or a piece of paper. As we did on the previous lecture, I am requiring that you take notes and answer any questions that I ask during the presentation and answer them in your notes. And before you ask, yes, you'll be turning in your notes and I will grade them and give them back. Do you notice the picture of the spiral notebooks in the corner? I have added this to the slide so you know you must take notes on that slide. As the lecture goes on, you will build the skill of being able to take notes without the prompt of the picture. So, I think we're ready to get started. Do you have your pen and paper ready? All right, let's go. Okay, this is the first slide with the notebooks, and it's a question. So I would like you to put this in your notes. What would happen if a business, let's say through advertising or other ways, made false claims about their product or service? Can you think of any ways that this could happen? That a company made false claims about what a product could do? Have you heard anything on the news? Think about it. Please write down what you remember. Where did you hear about it? How can this happen? Well, just for some examples, here's some examples of what some businesses in the past have done to take advantage. Prices are too high. Products are unsafe. Let's think about something that costs too much money, or some of the weight loss products that they advertise on TV that might not be safe. Was weight loss products in your list of things that you've heard about on the news? Well, when things started to happen and more businesses did these unfair business practices, pricing too high, unsafe products, customers weren't informed, what do you think people did? What would you do if you were treated unfairly or charged too much for what you bought? In the 60s, businesses did do a lot of unfair business practices. Consumers and people just wanted fair treatment from the businesses, just some fair treatment. So what they did is they went to the government for help. And President John F. Kennedy presented what he called a Consumer Bill of Rights. And what that did was it declared that every consumer has 4 rights when it comes to fair treatment. Now, after John F. Kennedy added 4 rights, some other presidents, Nixon, Ford, and Clinton, added some others. So let's take a look at that. But before we do that, can you think of some rights that consumers should have? Think about it. John F. Kennedy came up with 4. Can you come up with 2 or 3? Let's find out. Put them in your notes and let's compare and see what rights are in the Consumer Bill of Rights. Now I want us to compare the original Consumer Bill of Rights written by President John F. Kennedy, and Nixon added the 5th one. And let's compare to the Bill of Rights after Ford and Clinton became president. Why do you think we needed 2 more than the original? So what I want you to do is compare the original, look at the current Consumer Bill of Rights, write down the differences, and give me a reason why you think 2 more rights were added. Great job doing the similarities in your notes and comparing and looking at what things were added. Now let's look at each individual right. The first right we're going to look at is the right to be informed. What this means is most products and services are described in advertisements, which we talked about in marketing, on labels, which we've discussed just recently, or by salespeople. What the right to be informed means is you have the right to know what the product or service is and what it will do for you. How does this relate to the consumer's project that we just did? Tell me at least 3 things that you feel you should be informed about when it comes to our consumer rights project. I would like you to think about this. Describe a situation where you have the right to be informed about something. So the right to be informed also covers this. What happens when consumers are given false information in an effort to make a sale? There's actually a name for that. Do you know what that is? Yep, you guessed it. The word is fraud. Great job. I'm going to provide you with a good example of fraud. Let's say you're out looking for a used car, and you go to a used car lot, and you meet a salesman. He shows you this car, you fall in love with it, and you really like it. But you want a car that doesn't have very many miles on it. Well, the car salesman tells you, hey, this only has 100,000 miles on the car. And you're like, oh, that's great. Because, you figure in another 30 or 40,000 miles, the engine could get worn. You know enough about cars. But what you don't know is that the car dealer has actually changed the odometer. An odometer is what keeps track of the car's mileage. And they turned it back 30,000 miles. Now, by doing that, the salesman gave you false information about the number of miles on the car. And that is fraud. So now we know when it is fraud, when they knowingly lie about something. But when do you think it's not fraud? Now that we know what fraud is, what's not fraud? When is it not fraud? So now let's look at a situation when it's not fraud. One thing you must learn as a consumer is not all the product information that you receive is going to be accurate. Not perfectly accurate. So let's say we're dealing with a different car salesman at a different place, and they're more honest. And you say, how many miles to the gallon does this car get? And they go 20. You're like, oh, that's great. You buy the car, you get it home, you do some driving, you check the miles, it's getting 18. Did they lie? Did they commit fraud? Not really. They were just estimating. They were saying that, yeah, about 20, and that's okay. That is not fraud. But let's look at the second question. The second question is, let's say they told you that there were new brakes on the car. And you looked under there, and there weren't new brakes on the car. Were they honest? No, they weren't. That dishonesty would be fraud. So the answer to that question is yes. The second consumer right is the right to safety. What do you think this means? Right to safety. Remember when we talked earlier in class about the different government agencies that are consumer information sources? Well, when it comes to safety, these agencies help us in this. The government agencies that help protect consumers' right of safety are the following. If there is a situation that deals with hazardous materials, a recall of product, or setting safety standards, the government agency is the Consumer Product Safety Commission. The next government agency that works to ensure that consumers are safe by setting farming standards is which one do you think? I'll give you a second. You got it, the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Now there's two standards that we're going to talk about next. Food labeling, that we've been discussing in school during class, and also something that makes sure that foods and drugs are safe. Which agency do you think takes care of that? Boy, you guys are smart. Yes, it's the Food and Drug Administration. Okay, so far, what have we done? We've looked at the right to be informed, so that can be checked off the list. We've just talked about safety, and now we're going to talk about what is the right to choose. What does this mean, choose? What it means is, as a consumer, you should have choices when choosing what to buy. For example, the government and the FTC, which is the Federal Trade Commission, thinks it's important to prevent one firm from using unfair practices to force competing firms out of business. When you have one firm or company that does not have competitors, it is called a monopoly. Now, I know we've heard the term monopoly. You might have heard it in history class. We all know the board game Monopoly. The goal is to get it all, be in control. Well, the government really doesn't want one business in control of things. So, if a company has a monopoly, the cause of that is they can charge what they want. The government feels this is wrong. I want to know your opinion. A few years ago, and the reason that I put this image in is that Congress took a look at Microsoft. They thought that Microsoft had a monopoly on the software that was installed in all new computers. And because, 99% of the new computers had a Microsoft operating system installed on them when you went to the store and bought it, the government felt it didn't leave any room for Microsoft to have any competitors. Since then, you do see different Office programming available. There is Polaris. There is OneNote. Even Google Drive now has a slideshow and a document. So there is now competition for Microsoft, but for years Microsoft was the main operating system and program put on computers. Do you think that Microsoft had a monopoly all these years? Why? Or why not? The next right we're going to talk about is the right to be heard. What do you think that means? It means that if you have a customer complaint, you have a right to be heard about that complaint. If you are overcharged, if there's a defect. So to handle these challenges that businesses face, they have customer service departments to handle that. Grocery stores have them right up front. What I want you to do is I want you to think of a few companies that you know that provide customer service. And what kind of customer service do they provide? Is it over the phone? Is it in person? Give me a list. Now let's say you went to the customer service department and they didn't help you. They said, oh, too bad. Sorry this happened to you, whatever it was, but we're not going to fix it. So if the company didn't make it right, what's your next step? Well, you can go and look to see what the government might do for you. And your options could be your state attorney general, the court system, the Better Business Bureau, which we just learned about. And let's find out. What would we do? Right to a remedy. What does that mean? Consumers also have protection through laws that are provided to give them assurances that they can seek a legal remedy when a problem's comes into play? Well, this leads to the right of remedy. This is where laws and practices are designed to provide a way so people can seek the legal remedy. The examples that I found are laws that are in place already to give you that legal remedy if a problem occurs. Look at the Food and Drug Administration. Nutrition and labeling is a big one. It is important we know what's in our food. Does any of these laws look familiar to you? Is the answer yes? I hope so. Now that we've learned that we have government protection in the form of government agencies and laws, is there other protection out there for consumers? Yes, there is, and these are provided by the businesses. The first one is a guarantee. A guarantee is a promise in writing from a manufacturer or dealer that a product is of a certain quality. The guarantee can be for the whole item or only parts of it, and they usually replace the defective parts. Give me an example of where you've heard of a company that has had to replace defective parts. Now, believe it or not, there's two types of warranties. The first type of warranty is called an express warranty. That is made verbally or in writing. Promises are specific to quality and performance. How about a used car? Something like that. An implied warranty is imposed by law and is understood to apply even though it's not been stated. Same thing. The law requires certain standards be met. Can you think of an example? This is just a fun little fact. Teenagers, you spend about $200 billion each year. What do you think you spend it on? I'm going to give you a few minutes. I want you to make a list. Do, 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 do. Okay, what's on your list? Is school supplies on your list? Is snacking on your list? Or food? Going to the movies? Maybe getting a car? Playing video games? Or buying clothes? Did any of you get any of these? It'll be interesting to see when I read your notes. I'm sure you got all of them. You're so smart. The next section of the Consumer Bill of Rights is the right of consumer education. As a consumer, should we be informed? Why? Who's affected by our buying decisions? Could it be businesses, the economy, and there's even social implications. So, the buying actions of a consumer creates an interaction between us and the business. Being informed helps us make decisions. But what else does it do? It gives us a right to service. What would that be? A right to service for us is that as consumers we expect something to be convenient, courteous, responsible, and to respond to our needs. Businesses are encouraged to take the steps so that products and services meet quality and standards. That's our right to service. Now, we talked about what consumers expect: convenience, courtesy, and responsibility. But what are our responsibilities as consumers? Well, number one is be honest. And basically that breaks down to, if you're an honest customer in a store, then you don't shoplift. The problem with shoplifting is the business loses money. Well, in order for the business to get that money back, they just charge higher prices. So us as the consumer ends up paying for someone who stole something else. So being an honest consumer is a good thing. In addition, I'm going to ask you this. You go into a store. You buy something for $10. You hand the cashier $20. The cashier's distracted, something going on. He gives you your $20 back instead of giving you $10 in change. What do? Do you tell them that they made the wrong change? Or do you walk out the door with the money? Tell me why you would give the money back or why you wouldn't give the money back in your notes. I'm going to be interested to see what you say, because there are consequences for the person who's running the register, who gave you the change, who made the mistake. So you made your decision. Would you take the money and run? Would you take the money and run if you knew that that person had to take that out of their own pocket and put it back in the cash drawer, and they're the ones that lost the $10 because of their mistake? How fair is that? So, one of our big responsibilities as consumers is to be honest. Being an informed consumer. Tell me why this is important. And I want you to relate this to the Consumer Rights Project. And finally, be involved. If you see a concern, or if somebody, 5 of your family members or friends took this diet pill and they got sick, let people know. Be involved. Help out. That's all I'm asking. It's just the right thing to do. Thanks for listening. See me anytime if you have any questions. You know I'm always here. Remember, I'm available every day after school. I'm in room 107, except Thursdays, of course. I'm always available for extra help. Just ask, and I'll be there for you. Thanks for listening again. See you in class.